Hi, Marcus here. Today we're going to be talking about the two angular joint movements of flexion and extension. The definition of flexion is a decrease in the angle of a joint. The definition of extension is an increase in the angle of a joint. For example, if I was to talk about elbow flexion extension, if I have got the arm straight and I want to go into elbow flexion, I need to decrease the angle of the joint. So at the moment, I'm at 180 degrees. If I'm looking to decrease the angle for flexion, you will notice that the arm angle will come into 90 degrees. So I'm actually decreasing the angle of the elbow joint. So that is flexion. Alternatively, if we're looking at extension of the elbow, it is basically the reverse. So we're actually now increasing the angle of the joint. So if I started the elbow bent and extended the elbow to straight, that is now extension. So that arm has gone from 90 degrees to 180 degrees. Flexion, extension of the elbow. If we were to look at the hip joint, if I wanted to flex the hip or put the hip into hip flexion, I need to once again decrease the angle of the joint. So I need to actually bend my hip to flex, like so. So this is our hip joint. We go into flexion, decreasing the angle. I am at 180 degrees straight. The knee comes up, the hip flexes to 90. We have decreased the angle of the joint into hip flexion. And the opposite applies with extension. As I straighten my hip and my leg, I've gone from 90 to 180 degrees extension of the hip. So if we're going to put it into a practical sense, I have some dumbbells here. If I was to do a bicep curl, if I start in the straight position, I need to flex my elbow or go into elbow flexion to create a bicep curl movement. So that is flexion of the elbow. I've initiated the bicep to contract. So this is elbow flexion. If I wanted to extend the elbow joint, I would be using the tricep as the prime mover. I start in flexion and I extend the elbow joint. So once again, if we look at our angles, 90 degrees, 180. So I've extended the elbow, I've increased the angle of the elbow joint. Flexion and extension.